It's kind of cool to be here. I don't know if everybody's aware, but this is the third biggest thing that happens at ICSC. Number one, Vegas. Number two, New York City. We're number three, but we're the only regional event that's anywhere near this size. And so I really am excited to be with all of you today, and I'm going to talk about something that really kind of gets me going. I said I'm an engineer, and 40 years ago I started at Cornell University with the hopes of figuring out how to predict the winners of horse races, highlight events, and dog track running. My mom thought I was a lunatic because IBM hadn't yet made any computers, and so I was using these Radio Shack computers with these cassette players, and I'm calculating things using these racing forms. And my mother wanted to know is how at age 16 I could even get into these places, and I told her, well, thank God for fake IDs, that I could get in just about everywhere. Including the neighborhood strip bars. But this has been a passion of mine. I'm going to talk to you today about big data, machine learning, and really artificial intelligence, because I think that we are coming into a period of time with this new technology that's going to be transformational for all industries, and particularly for real estate. Before I get started, I want to see a show of hands of how many students do we have joining us for lunch. So if you're a student, raise your hand.
Wow.
All right, we got a lot of students here. Last night at dinner, one of the people asked the question at a small group, was at a table of 10 people, how many people are using AI every day? So how many of you are using AI? Raise your hand, you're using AI every day. Okay, so a little bit more, about the same as the number of students. In my table last night, out of 10 people, 2 of us were using AI every day. Now, I don't need to ask this other question. If I reach in my pocket and pull out my Apple phone and ask how many of you have one of these in your pocket and are using it every day, I know that everybody's going to raise their hand. And in fact, AI, I want you to take away from this talk today, will be very much like that for you at some time in the future. Okay, so what most important thing AI needs to get going is AI needs lots and lots and lots of data, okay? And at Woolbright, we love data. As you heard Katie introduce, I know about your shopping center, and I know how much space you had empty last year, I know how much space you have empty this year, I know what you're charging for rent, I know what your site plan says, we know who your tenant is. We at Woolbright gather up tons and tons of data, and most of the data that we need to use to make our predictions, which I'm going to share with you in just a moment, is really not available from an online service like CoStar, Crexy. I mean, you're gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way and get out and hunt for the data. Okay, so much of the data that you need to have these powerful models that we're seeing in the AI world, you're gonna have to collect the data, and you're gonna have to have a team that's doing the field work. So at Woolbright, we have a 12-person team doing research, IT, and data programming, including 2 PhD scientists now devoted just to AI. So let's see what some of the big data is telling us, because that's step one in AI. The first thing is good news for Florida, because I think the next 10 years are going to be the best 10 years of my life in this industry, and hopefully a great 10 years for you. In the next 25 years, Florida will be nearly 35 million people, 10 million more people than there is today. And when you look at these charts, and good news is I didn't have to chase all this data, this is from the Census Bureau and the University of Florida, you just notice that the places that the people live today, the red places, get more red. And a really simple way to think about Florida's population growth over the next 25 years is that if you look to your neighbor, you're going to have a half a new neighbor no matter what. Okay, so and by the way, that's good that you see this chart here in Florida, because half the United States isn't going to grow, all of Europe won't grow, and China will shrink. So you're in a really lucky spot. Now here's the retail ecosystem, and this is a kind of a scary slide. For 40 years, we added up how many shopping centers were built every year, how many shopping centers we had. In this case, the really low line is the number of malls. We haven't had a mall in 20 years, okay? There's only 60 of them left, and my prediction is in the next 10 years, we'll probably knock down and repurpose half of those 60. But you'll notice something kind of crazy happening about 10 years ago as we started getting Amazon delivery and more things online. We really stopped growing shopping centers. Now, it didn't happen to our population. It keeps blowing right along. And the consequence of that is that today we have about a 4 or 5% vacancy rate in all the major markets of Florida. We've just crashed through the all-time lows, and we're heading towards 2%. The average shopping center today has one empty shop space. One, about 3,000 square feet. Every 15 centers you can find an empty box. And I think next year at this time, the average shopping center won't have any space. Right? Just imagine that. What happens in a world where there's no empty spaces? Now, to make matters worse, this chart shows you the number of shopping centers over 75,000 feet that opened in the major metropolitan areas of Florida in 23, this year in 24, and will open next year in 25. Now that's a pretty scary chart, and it's a pretty easy chart to remember. 6, 5, 3. Now when I was growing up in Florida, we have 4,000 shopping centers today. Every year we built 100 shopping centers. How can we have a population growing this fast where we only can justify building 3 shopping centers? Now there's a really good reason, according to the data, why we build 3 shopping centers. One, the developers can't get low enough construction costs to justify making a profit, because 2, the tenants can't justify paying a high enough rent to allow that developer to sell the property. So the response is, we just won't build any of these things. And the good news for you, you don't have to take a picture of the slide. Go to the Woolbright.blog website. Every year I put every site plan of every new project out on that blog. You can in 15 minutes take a tour of every new shopping center in Florida and be a total expert. Of course, if you really want to be crazy, get in your car one weekend and drive. You can see every new project in literally one weekend. You couldn't do that when I was growing up. You needed to go to 100 projects, and that would take months. Okay, so we're in a new place. Now, no empty space, lots of people coming, hardly any new space being added. Is it any surprise that you see faster and faster rent growth? Okay, so we've gone from a period of rent growth that was 3 or 4% in the prior decade to now we've went into the 7% rent growth, and now we're on track for 15% rent growth. What does 15% rent growth mean? Well, something that grows at 15% a year doubles in 5 years, okay? That's a pretty scary thought. And in fact, these are from actual phone calls to landlords. Hey, you have a 1,200-foot space available. We're thinking of putting in an ice cream shop. How much is the rent? We've been making these calls for 40 years, and we've never seen this kind of growth. Now, the good news is this sets the stage for making retail properties great investments as the interest rates come down and we go forward. Now, this is what I think happens in the next 5 years. The yellow numbers are the current rents. In Southeast Florida, $40 a foot. In Orlando, $25 a foot. Maybe in the Tampa market, $29 a foot. And this is for a typical public center. And I'm projecting pretty much across the state in 5 years, when there's no more of those empty spaces, you folks here are going to be asking for $50 a foot in rents. You're going to be telling me, oh my gosh, Duane, no way can our tenants absorb a 40 or 30% rent increase. But let's think about this. Your tenants are paying about 10% of their sales in rent. And if their rent went up 30%, their sales would have to go up about 3% to offset that rent increase. So it's very possible that Florida can absorb this big increase in rents for retail properties. And if we get this big increase in rents, the good news is we also get a big increase in new construction again. And these prices are, for the most part, in those handful of new projects, these are the rents that those new centers are able to get. So that's what we learned from the big data. But what about sort of the ghost in the room, the monster in the room, the AI, right? When I was going to college studying machine learning and artificial intelligence in the early 80s, the holy grail of computer intelligence was believed to be, if the computers could ever beat a human in chess, that's it, game over, the computers will be smarter than everybody. And of course, we know Gary Kasparov lost to IBM's Big Blue about 10 years ago, and the world really didn't come to an end, and it turned out that computers weren't smarter than us just because they could beat us no matter what in chess. So what are we looking at in the AI revolution? Because now we have ChatGPT 4. It cost about $1 billion for OpenAI to train the computers to do that. And we're on track to having GPT-5 and GPT-6. And so you can imagine that in 2026, we're projecting a 10 times faster machine, but of course that will cost $10 billion. In 2028, we're expecting another tenfold increase, but that's expected to cost $100 billion. And you can see OpenAI is already out raising the $10 billion. By 2030, we're expecting to see the first trillion-dollar cluster. This will take something like 10 gigawatts of power, about the power required to power a small state, and maybe using something on the order of 20% of the US power supply. Now, I don't know if this is really going to happen. These are the forecasts that the experts are telling me. But if you're not paying attention to AI, if you're not doing something every day to look at AI, you are going to find out that just like you're going to start losing the chess game, okay? So I'm going to give you the Woolbright roadmap to AI. What things should you be working on and thinking about, and what things shouldn't you be working on when you think about AI? Now, the first thing I want to remind you, this thing on the left here was the iPod. I remember being at the ICSC conference in 2001 when the iPod was introduced, some 23 years ago. The big thing in 2001 was the Woolbright party. We were going to come get blasted at the Woolbright party on Sunday night and struggle through the ICSC conference on Monday. Followed by 6 years later, Steve Jobs came out and introduced the item on the right, the thing that everybody has in their pocket. Just 17 years ago, the first iPhone came out. What was the important thing to do at the ICSC conference in 2007? Make it to the Woolbright party, okay? And boy, let me tell you, before the GFC, that Woolbright party in 2007 was quite the humdinger. And we had a lot of people that didn't quite make it to the conference the next day. And so the Woolbrighters, when the iPhone came out, we ran around and we developed every app you could think of. We built apps for tracking our canvassing of every shopping center, automating how we generated leasing reports. We called it our 30, 60, 90 program so that we could see where all of our prospects were moving through the pipeline. We built apps so you could see every shopping center, what were they charging for rent. All of this lived in your pocket on your iPhone, and for many people that was unheard of. Over over time, all of your iPhones in the next 17 years got to do some pretty cool things, like get you an Uber car, give you directions to everywhere you wanted to go, let you order food, buy your plane tickets. And so sometimes, some groups like Woolbright will spend lots and lots of time writing the software, and we'll use it internally. And other things, other groups, for these AI tools, will make it available to you as a service. Okay, so there's no today really low-hanging fruit, and just like when you got the first iPhones, it's pretty hard to figure out all the things you're going to be able to do to it. Now, computers, let's go to the next slide here. I need you to understand that computers don't think like people. So when we talk about super intelligent computers, you have to remember that the image of me that you see on the screen right now is made up of 1,000 rows and 1,000 columns or 1,000,000 dots. Each dot has a number representing some color of my skin, my jacket, whatever. So there's 1,000,000 numbers. They're being changed 60 times a second. You guys aren't catching that with your eyes, but there's massive amounts of data, and so when computers look at an image like a school bus, they don't see a school bus like you. They see 1,000,000 numbers on a screen for 60 times moving in a second. Now, when we want to teach a computer on how to recognize a school bus, this happens in 2017, Jeffrey Hinton at the University of Toronto wins a competition to build a neural network that can decode 1,000,000 pictures and correctly label them cat, dog, school bus, and so on. So starts really the most important chapter in the 40 or 50-year history of AI. Now, my granddaughter, who is turning 2 next week, I will be attending the 2 birthday party. She only needed 3 images of a school bus to learn the school bus, as opposed to the computer, which needs 200,000 images. Now, so there are some problems that you won't have enough data to teach the computer to do, and so you shouldn't try to use AI to do those problems. Some people, they'll go nameless, constantly come to tell me, I'm going to build a program so the AI can look at the 4,000 shopping centers in Florida and tell me which ones to buy. I'm like, you need about 200,000 data points to figure out which are the good ones and which are the bad ones, and there aren't that many shopping centers in the United States. So don't work on that problem. What problem should you work on? Well, the first thing that AI is going to do a really good job for you is it's going to write programs for you. At Woolbright, our computer programmers probably write twice as much code every day because the computer is accessing its tools from OpenAI and able to write program after program without error, write web apps, write iPhone apps. And so the first really explosion that you're gonna get from AI, and even for you, you can literally go and ask the AI, write this program, run it on my phone, and it will do it. So the first areas you're gonna see is if you have a programming team at your firm, they're gonna get much, much more productive with the advent of these tools as they evolve over the next couple of years. Now, the next thing that's going to be transformational in your world is going to be design. Every image that you've seen today normally would have come from some really smarty pants photographer taking but all these images are artificially generated images. They're not real people that you're going to see a little bit, and there is no job anymore for those photographers to do that. Same thing, the Spanish version of this talk and the German version of this talk will all be translated by AIs, and all the translators are out of business. But I got good news for you. Lots of the tasks that need to be done will be done by people still. So here's the first floor of our office building. We got sick of driving down the street every day for food, and we asked the AI to imagine, what if we could put a restaurant in this building? And we said that, listen, we want high ceilings, and the AI came up with the idea of digging out part of the floor. because it was a multi-story building and you couldn't really go up. And within a matter of minutes, the AI had fully designed a restaurant. We've had it design out parcel buildings. We can imagine it. We haven't fully implemented it yet, but you have a tenant for your space and they're a hair salon, they're a bicycle store. The AI will instantaneously help you imagine what that space looks like and share it with your client, and then pass that design on to your design professional. So that's available today. This was all done with Midjourney. It's challenging to use right now. My best recommendation for learning things like this is just lots of YouTube videos and lots of experimentation, but this is really accessible today for everybody. After you get through design, you got to get through the acquisition stuff. And what are the things that you should be working on in the acquisitions world? Well, we've been able to teach, using the AIs, how to read the 70-page leases and get all the information you need to build an Argus model, to build a rent roll. We've been able to use the AIs to read an offering memorandum, which is a PDF, extrapolate all the important information, put it into an Excel spreadsheet using our formats, and then finally to break apart an Argus model, compare the information from the leases, compare the information from the OM, and then contrast and find any errors that are made. So the AIs are really ready to read every document you have and answer all of your questions about all those documents. And you should be using that. You can use that tool today, okay? You can also have the AIs. Let's imagine a world where there's 1,000 Publixes in Florida, and 200 are owned by Publix, so you don't want to bother calling those, they're never going to be for sale. And 300 are owned by the REITs, they're probably never going to sell those either. And that means there's about 500 Publix centers owned by individuals or smaller companies, and you'd like your AI to contact those 500 people and see if any of them were interested in selling in the next year. You can do that today. That's what the Woolbright team is working on. Boy, I'm going to tell you, there's all kinds of problems you can't imagine when you try to do that. Same thing when you read leases with the AI. It hates cross-outs, and there's all kinds of problems to get over. Maybe GPT-5 will fix that, but you can work through a lot of that stuff. Leasing. The AI is going to begin to, you lose your pizza shop, the AI will quickly be able to identify for you the 40 pizza shops that are immediately in your area, tell you who the contact people are at those 40 pizza shops, rank them according to their Yelp reviews, send an email, answer the email, go back and forth a few times to schedule appointments for you. The AI will be a really robust prospecting tool. It's not available out of the box just yet. You're gonna, until somebody builds that app for you, you're gonna have to write a lot of code, but the AI will change the way you do leasing. In addition, the AI can already read all of your online leasing plans. It can tell us who all the tenants are in your center. It can tell us the square footages. You're like, well, I didn't even put the square footages. I only put the square footages of the 2 available bays on my site plan. Doesn't matter. The AI counts the dots on your site plan, assumes your site plan is to scale, calculates the square footage for every tenant, doesn't need any extra help. It writes some magic program to do all this for you. And so at Woolbright, for example, we track 250 vacant boxes. And we're trying to find out, where's the Ross Dress for Less coming 12 months from now? They just signed a lease, you ran out and put it on your site plan, and we have one person at Woolbright, Jake. Jake's the greatest guy. It takes Jake a week, a month to look at those 250 site plans until we learn that we could have the AI read the plans, figure out who your new tenants were, and track the new nationals that were coming into your projects without Jake spending a week, because Jake has a lot of better things to do in his life. And so we can see a year before they open, if you put it on your leasing plan, all the tenants that are coming into all the projects. We have to point the AI to the centers that have empty boxes, but since we know where the centers are that have empty boxes, once it goes there, it can determine whether that bay that used to be vacant because Big Lots closed, you replaced it with a Ross lease. So it saves a human from doing that. Another favorite spot of mine, legal. AIs are great at words. My dream has been a 3-page lease. I don't know about anybody else in this room that ever had that dream. I think I may one day win my chance to have at least a more simple lease with the advent of AI. And you know, not only will the AI read a 70-page document and quickly point you in the direction of answering your question about the lease, what's the tenant's exclusive, what other co-tenancy things are there, so you don't have to thumb through the lease 50 times. The AI will also translate the lease into any language for you. So maybe your client is struggling with understanding the lease. You can have a translated version in addition to the English version for them. And so legal is going to happen now, but the aspects that I'm telling you about. The next thing that has me super excited is the concept of an AI co-pilot. You can already take all your Zoom calls and all your Teams calls, and the AI will give you a total transcript of your call. It will give you a summary of the call. It will give you a list of the commitments that you made during the call to the various team members and tell you who's been assigned what tasks. All of that the AI can do today. What we're working on at Woolbright is the next step. So imagine you're in a leasing meeting. You're presenting to a prospect a space, and you've got your phone going. Everybody's got to get comfortable with that. Same thing in the Zoom call and everything else. Like, data's going to be gone everywhere with AI. And you look down at your phone because you tell your client that you need to check your notes, and you're trying to remember 2 or 3 of those important things that you always like to ask prospects, but you think you may have forgotten. Now, since the AI has followed the whole meeting and has a transcript of the meeting, it'll be very easy for the AI to point out that you forgot to ask for the tenant's credit file, or remind them that there's going to be a 2-month security deposit. The AI will remember that. The other thing you could do is you could easily hit a button on your phone and say, how do I overcome this objection, using the best ideas from, say, Zig Ziglar or from Pete Schlang, the Woolbright director of leasing, and your co-pilot will be able to consult your best practices sheets and quickly give you an answer while you're sort of consulting your notes. So co-pilot will help you in negotiating with your lenders. Co-pilot will help you in buying or selling properties. Co-pilot will help you in your tenant negotiations. And we are really there today with Copilot. And you might say, well, wait a minute, the LLM doesn't know all the special things that we need in our industry. So recently I was doing my 14-hour continuing education class, and it comes with a 100-page PDF. And I'm like, okay, let me give all the AI knowledge that lives already in the AI and this 100-page PDF, and then let me see if I can test it if it can answer the questions at the end. Well, once I gave it the 100-page PDF combined with what the AI already knew, it could answer 29 out of the 30 questions perfectly, and then we had a fight for about a half an hour on the correct answer to the last question about correct advertising for something which I believed infringed on some religious freedoms, and the AI felt that it was more of an age-related discrimination issue. So we really never resolved that. And I got one thing wrong, and I'll never know which one question was wrong for purposes of my continuing education. But I bring this up because originally we thought that in order for the AIs to have special knowledge, so you could ask this AI, hey, I'm working from home, do I need to have my real estate license sign posted out front of my house? And the answer is no. But given my 100-page PDF book combined with the knowledge the AI had, I got the correct answer to that question, right? So just about everything you need, the AI will be an expert, and you will be as good as any chess player. You'll win every poker game, you'll win every chess game, as long as they let you look at your phone, okay? And as long as you let your phone listen in on what's going on. Now, there's some good news here. We're not all going anywhere because of the AIs, okay? These 2 people playing chess, this is the way the real world works. It's 2 people, like all of you in this room right now, coming face to face, trying to get some tough decisions made. Maybe there's some strategy, maybe there's some gamesmanship going on. I mean, come on, we're in the real estate business, there's always a little bit of that. I think this lady maybe has the coolest AI parked underneath her purse there at the bench, and she's going to hustle this poor old guy out of his $100, but maybe not. Maybe this old guy has the AI built into his glasses or his earpiece, and he's about to beat the pants off of this woman and win her $100. But the human interaction, human factor, that's what's critical in our industry. See, you should learn AI, but you need to get better and better at just being good at what you do as a human, right? Be more empathic with people. Be a better speaker. Have a deeper vocabulary. Have a better sense of what's going on in your marketplace, right? Come together with people, because the AI can't show the space, and we all know it takes about 10 showings before a space gets rented. And so that's not going to be replaced, and it's invaluable. And if you do it well, your value goes up a great deal in the future. Okay, particularly for all you students, just so you don't think you can get away with AI everything. You win this game in a face-to-face interaction. That's how our industry works. I use the analogy of it as a game. So again, you want to know which tenants are expanding in Florida. You want to have a site plan for every empty shopping center. You want to know every time how many big lots are closing and where it's happening. We post it. You want to know every shopping center that's sold. You want to know who bought every shopping center. We post all of that information for free on our Woolbright blog. Sandy said we need to start thinking about some ways to collaborate more with ICSC so that everybody can find this stuff more easily. You can easily message me on LinkedIn. I love to talk about AI and all of these things until your heart's desire. Don't worry. I'm super excited about the prospects that having computers that one day are AGI, artificial general intelligence, really as smart as the smartest of us in the room, and that day is coming, right? When they spend $1 trillion to train these computers, and they burn up 10 gigawatts in power, and they're all working on it. Microsoft, OpenAI, Google, it's NVIDIA. Jason Wang said at NVIDIA, in 5 years, the NVIDIA chips will be 1 million times more powerful than they are today, okay? Let me give you an idea. I drove here from Boca Raton yesterday. If I could have gone here, it took me 3 hours, roughly 200 minutes, but if I could have been 1 million times faster, I would have been here in 2 seconds, okay? Your world is about to become 1 billion times faster in the next 5 years in AI. The kinds of things that will change are beyond what I could imagine when Jobs first introduced that iPhone in 2007, but I will assure you that every one of you will have it in your pocket, and you'll be able to make great use out of it. So thank you for letting me tell you, and if there's some questions, I'm happy to take any questions we got from the floor.
Good. Thank you. Your statistics about shopping centers are very impressive. One quick question. What percentage of retail is now freestanding stores that aren't included in the shopping center inventory, and how does that impact the conclusions?
So let me make sure I got the question. What percentage of the retail space is freestanding stores, right? So we can think of a freestanding Walmart, a freestanding Costco, a freestanding Walgreens. Is that what you're thinking about? Yeah, so it's a great question. I think something on the order of magnitude of 20% of the space, okay, is freestanding. Let me just take that question, though, a little bit step further, because another really interesting question is, if you look at the tenants that use more than 10,000 feet in Florida, and you look at those tenants that have 15 or more locations, it turns out there's only 100 businesses in that group, okay? Walmart, Walgreens, Publix, Whole Foods. But those businesses have 60,000 stores in Florida, and they represent 70% of all the GLA. And so what happens to those 100 companies is really the main driver for what happens to our whole industry. And some fraction of those 60,000 locations are actually freestanding spots. So that's what's going on. We study deeply. If you come by the Woolbright booth, there's a ticker tape that shows you every time one of those boxes is opening and closing in real time. The good news is for everybody here, there's only about 10 of them that close in a typical month, and even the better news is there's about 15 that open. So while we're here at ICSC, the odds are that there's one store closing and maybe one store opening. All right? Other questions?
In regards to AI, are you using ChatGPT primarily, or did you build a logo rack on Llama 70 or something?
Okay, this is a great question. So what's the team at Woolbright using for AI? Because there's a number of models out there, right? So Facebook has the Llama models, a French company, Mistral, has their models, some spin-offs of OpenAI, Anthropic has the Claude models. OpenAI has, which is now owned by, has a stake in it by Microsoft, and then there's the Gemini models from Google and the DeepMind team. We've tried all the models on leases, and the winner right now is GPT-4o. But these things change every day, and like the new one comes out, and it can tell you the pro rata share of real estate taxes a little bit better than the other model. The one thing that is interesting is if you have a current question, then Perplexity does a really good job of crawling the web and giving you an answer. So for example, recently I wanted to know, because there's a presidential candidate that's South Asian, and I wanted to know the percentage of the people on the planet that were South Asian, and it quickly gave me the 10 or 15 countries that are in South Asia and the 2 billion people. So Perplexity was the way to look for stuff like that. But we like OpenAI GPT-4o right now, and everything, all of you should invest the $20 a month and have the pro version, because it's just going to be so much more powerful if you're willing to kind of incorporate this into your everyday experience. Giving you all the secret sauce I can give you on AI.
Yeah, Duane, great information as always. You talked about how development is swimming upstream right now because of high construction costs and rents that have yet to catch up. What do you see happening? Is it going to be like this slog for the next 5 years until those rents hit that magic number, and then what's going to happen after they hit that magic number?
Yes, you're killing me, but because everybody like they got this shock collar on you, Woolbright, right? But it stands to reason, right, that you can't have a place that's going from 23 million people to 33 million people and not keep building shopping centers, because nobody wants to wait 3 weeks for their dry cleaning to come back, or have to call a dozen restaurants before you can find one spot where there's reservation space available. So, and companies like Ross Dress for Less are going to want new stores in Dade County, and the fact that there's only 4 vacant boxes, none of which they would like, is going to make them happy if they're not growing their footprint. And so I think this is really the next 5 to 10 years will turn out to be a dramatic turning point for development. Probably today is like the right day to go out and start looking for these sites, because you're probably at the forefront of when you can get the retailers to pay you enough rent so you can get the profit you need. And you're doing it just as the financing markets are starting to return, where if you did have those lease commitments, you could easily find the construction financing. So realistically, while I had 2022 was the peak retail space, and it was falling because we were demolishing mostly the regional malls, we're gonna surpass the retail space we have today. Sometime in the next 5 years, we're gonna go back to building dozens of those shopping centers a year because the rents will recover. And if you're gonna wanna be in that business, you should be going out and looking for those opportunities now. All right, well, thank you all very much. Go have a great show. And if you have any more questions, I'll hang out up here. Come see me.